What is up, Facebook? Coach Stefan here. Happy freaking Thursday. I know last Thursday was Thanksgiving, and hopefully you guys didn't overeat or go too crazy, because today's topic is going to be about nutrition. If you don't know, every Thursday at 3:45 Arizona time, which, don't be mad at me, our time zone changes. So it should be, at the time of this recording, 4:45 Central and 5:45 Eastern. So until we have another time zone change, that's what they are. So this topic specifically is going to be about carbs, because I do get a lot of questions around the holidays. Should I do low carb? Should I do keto? I'm trying to kind of like get a jump on what I'm doing with the new year. So I'm going to break it down to you for a couple reasons. Now, I will say I am low on sleep. I had a baby a month ago. I have dark circles under my eyes. My brain is at like not full capacity. So just bear with me for this training, but I'm going to try to break it down in a couple ways. So the question is, should you eat low carbs to lose fat? I want to step back, and I want you guys to understand some science, because it will make so much more sense. So in order to lose stored body fat, you do have to be at a calorie deficit. That might be like new news for you or whatever. If you ask what a calorie deficit is, basically you have your maintenance calories, like you eat enough calories to maintain where you are at right now. You're not gaining body fat, you're not losing body fat. And a deficit is just anything lower than that. Most people will be in a 300 to 500 calorie deficit. So let's say 2,500 calories are my maintenance. I would be either at 2,200 calories or 2,000 calories. For some people, they feel like that's too much, but I'm telling you, if you do like 100 calorie deficit, it's not enough to see any substantial results. So 300 to 500 for most people, generalization, is really good. Now, when you do a calorie deficit, you can reduce your calories from basically anything. If you don't know, each calorie, right, has a macronutrient component to it. So 1 gram of protein is 4 calories. 1 gram of carbohydrate is also 4 calories. And 1 gram of fat is 9 calories, right? So fat is a little over double protein and carbs. So when you're reducing your calories, you got to think about that, right? The one area that I definitely would not reduce from is protein. Protein should basically stay the same. Your protein should be about 1 gram per pound of lean desired body mass. Now, I'm guessing a lot of you guys are trying to lose weight. So check this out. If you're 190 pounds or 220 pounds, doesn't matter. Let's go 200 pounds. And you want to be 170, you don't need to eat 200 grams of protein. Okay. I know you're like, but I weigh 200 pounds, 1 pound per gram, of lean desired body mass. You don't want to be 200, right? So maybe a little bit more, maybe like 170 to 180 for your protein. As far as your carbs go, you can actually go low carb. That's fine. It will reduce your calories, but you actually have to cut your carbs a lot more than you would cut your fats. The percentage kind of works out to be the same, but here's the things I love and I hate about low carb diets. Number one, the thing I love is when you cut out carbs, usually you are cleaning up your diet. Most people that eat a lot of carbohydrates are in the form of processed food, chips, pastas, breads, things like that, rice. Yes, those things are kind of processed. The only non-processed thing generally, I'm not saying they're bad, they're just processed, would be generally like a fruit or a vegetable. Every other type of grain, or obviously like chips and pastas all made with types of grains, do go through a process thing. It's not bad. Like rice isn't bad for you. Beans aren't bad for you. But the whole point, well, I guess beans are more natural, but the whole point about that is you just end up consuming more calories. That's generally what happens. And it's easier to overeat on carbs and fat than it is protein. So a good thing, like I said, is when you cut out carbs, your diet cleans up usually. Also, another thing is most people look leaner, but not because they're losing fat. Check out this word, carbohydrate. So what that means is it's actually hydrating you. It holds onto water molecules and it's stored in a couple places inside your muscles as muscle glycogen. So if you eat like a crap load of rice and you get this like pump, you feel like your muscles are full. That's literally water storage in your muscles. Almost kind of the same thing that creatine does, but a little bit different. So your body's holding onto it. So when you cut out carbs, your body is going to shed water, and your body's made up of mostly water. So that's why you can go on a low carb diet and you go, I lost 10 pounds in a week. That is not fat. In fact, very few of that is fat. Maybe if you were at a 500 calorie deficit a day, you could lose 1 pound of fat per week, because 5 times 7 is 3,500 calories. And that's how much is in 1 pound of body fat. So just because you lost 8 pounds or 9 pounds on the scale doesn't mean you lost fat. Again, the scale is actually a really terrible tool for body composition, because if I ate a burrito that weighed 4 pounds and I stepped on the scale, most of you would be like, oh, oh my God, I gained 4 pounds, and you freak out. Well, how much did the burrito weigh? 4 pounds. Okay. So this is how much it weighed. Or what if you drink 4 pounds of water? Did you get fat? Well, no, it's just the water weight. It's the same thing. So number one, forget about the scale. But people like that. People are like, oh my God, I feel so good. The scale went down. And if that's all you have to track your metrics is the scale and progress photos, and you don't have a body scanner that checks like your body fat and all that, then I totally understand. But for the most part, like you gotta go a little bit deeper. And that's what we do with our clients, but I'm not even going to go there because it's not what this is about. Another thing that I like is it generally does work on reducing body fat. Most people that do a low carb, high protein, and moderate fat diet lose body fat. The problem though is eventually they want to start implementing carbs, because carbs are fun. They want to have a burger. They want to have some fries. They want to have some bread. They want to have a beer. And once they start doing that, they blow back up, because the low carb diet, with low carb diets, there's usually muscle loss, which means ultimately you're actually lowering your metabolism, which is not good, right? You don't want to lower your metabolism. So there's good things. And I know I said a bad thing, but I have another bad thing. When you do low carb, you feel like you have less energy. Most people that eat low carb diets, they're lethargic. Well, if you're on a really pretty low carb diet, and if you say, well, what's a low carb diet? I'd say like 20%, 15 to 20% of daily carbs are below for your calories. So for me, if I'm eating like 3,000 calories a day, I'd say like 100 and under is pretty low carb, because I'm usually at like 230, 240. It's 50% less, or less than 50%. So I could tell when I have 100 carbs, I'm hungry and I drag ass a little bit and I'm tired. And that's not optimal for performance. Versus if I would have just eaten the carbs, I would have been able to get a more intense workout, would have more energy to work out and go on a walk. And I probably could have ate more, been more full, been more happy, and created more muscle, which helps my metabolism. If you see where I'm going, it's a positive snowball. More carbs are always better if you train. Now, if you have a job where you're like, I just can't train 4 days a week and I'm super sedentary and I can't get any steps, then you probably would thrive a little more off of a low carb diet, because carbohydrates are your initial fuel. That's glucose and glycogen. That is what your brain and muscles run off of primarily. I'm not even going to go into ketones and ketosis. That's for another time. But like generally, that's your body's preferred fuel source. That's what you should be running off of. So when you take it, it's not going to perform. And you do want to perform, because the way that you train in the gym is also the way you look. Another thing is, when you do low carb, you look flat. Like if you cut out carbs right now in a week, you look like crap. Like especially specifically males, you look a lot less muscular. You'd look skinnier and flabbier and almost skinny fat. That's not optimal. You want to look like hard and full, right? Like your muscles look full and solid. That's done through carbs, sodium, and water. But if you're not training, then it will make you fatter, right? But you could also do the same thing with fat, eating fats, dietary fat. If you overconsume fats, you're going to get fat. Protein is the only macronutrient that it's very hard for your body to store it as stored body fat. So if you're going to go over any macronutrient, if you're like, oh, but I'm so hungry and I'm already at my calories, eat protein. Oh, but I'm going over my protein. You'll be fine. It's probably not going to be stored as fat. Carbs, eating fat, yes, those will be stored as body fat, probably. So I'm not against a low carb diet, but if you're planning on it going into the new year, I'd actually advise probably against it. I think the better thing to do is actually just eat a very moderate diet, like 30% protein, 30% carbs, 30% fat, something like that, like just even throughout. And the reason is your body needs fat to feel strong and for hormone production. So you also can't go low fat. I really do believe your body's supposed to have like majority carbs, like not like crazy, but like a good amount of fats. And then like your protein generally doesn't change. Now, based on your activity level, and if you're like endurance athlete, or you do like a bunch of CrossFit or high intensity stuff, your carbs are going to go up. And that's how I do it. It's so easy. That's how we work with our clients. We're like, hey, look, your fats are going to stay here within this range. Let's say like 80 to 90 a day. Your protein stays literally at 180 or 170. And your carbs, you just manipulate those based on how active you are. If you did an extra 5-mile run, cool, you're going to eat this many more carbs. If you just sat on your ass all day and you didn't do anything, cool, your carbs are going to drop a little bit. And that's probably the easiest way to do it. Continuous low carbs it's not beneficial. It's usually not long-term sustainable, especially when you get into like, having 40 carbs a day, which is like basically keto, or I guess a little above keto, it depends. But like, I've been there. I've done all of them. If you guys go look at my profile picture, you're probably like, dude, that guy's jacked and ripped. I was not low carb. Even leading up to it, I didn't do low carb. I had a pretty moderate amount and I just trained harder because I looked better. I felt better. I looked more full. I was more physically capable. Low carb is just beating your head into a wall for the vast majority of people. That being said, you can do it temporarily. If you're like, hey, this is my push month and I'm going to be lower carb, not crazy, not keto. I'm going to be lower carb and I really need to burn off this fat. That's fine. You just have to know that during that time, you might lose some muscle. You might lower your metabolism a little bit, and you might not have like the most optimal performance. If it means though, that you lose 10 pounds in a month, like of body fat, you have to be very large to do that. Versus the standard 1 pound of fat per week at a 500 calorie deficit. That makes sense. You need to like broaden your horizon of like where you're going to go after this month. And a lot of people will do low carb. It's miserable. They have no fun. And then they don't really know where to go from there. So if you do low carb, there has to be a transitional diet, whatever you want to call it, nutritional way of eating. I don't even care. There has to be something you transition to. If you think that you're just going to sit there and be like, all right, well, like this is what I'm doing. And then I guess after I'll just go back to what I was doing. No. You also can't just go from like 100 carbs a day back to your 220 instantly. You'll get fat. You need to do probably like a reverse diet, whether you're doing low carb or low fat. If you're in a calorie deficit and you're dieting down, you always want to kind of do some type of reverse diet, which is basically slowly adding in calories. And I can do a separate training on that if you guys are curious, but hopefully this gives you some perspective. I'm not saying low carb is the worst thing in the world. I think long-term, it's not very sustainable. I see more people struggle and hate their lives doing low carb than people that just eat a moderate carb, but learn to train more. And eating less gives you eating less carbs doesn't give you any health benefit generally. Okay. Generally, like obviously if you're diabetic or pre-diabetic, there could be some different things, but like generally eating less carbs doesn't. But does exercising more give you more health benefits, mental and physical? Absolutely. So instead of sitting there and trying to do it like all from nutrition, which mostly should be from nutrition, worry about eating like a normal person, but just exercising more. And if you say, I'm too busy and I don't have time or whatever, I'm just, oh my gosh, well, you need to reprioritize your life. It's not that hard. We have people that are in our program that have 4 kids and work full time, both parents and all this stuff. And they're still in the gym 5-6 days a week. You need to make time for it. You need to make it a priority. And if you don't, you're going to keep struggling and you're going to have to do these like crazy, stupid crash diets every year. It's a transition. Like it's a loop of death. It's like, oh, I'm like, don't really exercise. So I have to do these like crazy drastic diets. And then I do them and then I'm miserable. And they're so miserable that the new year I'm done. And then I gain the weight and I'm just like, you know who you are. And the only way is probably eating like a normal person, eating a normal amount and implementing training. And the people that do that in a program get shredded and they stay shredded because they're like, I could do this all year. This isn't that miserable. I'm able to go on date nights. I'm able to eat this. I'm able to go to the movie theater and eat some popcorn and have a beer. Try that on a low carb, super restrictive, shitty diet. It sucks. It's not going to happen. So again, if you want a physique like me and you want to be able, or ideally working towards this, and you want to have a life where you can do things and eat things and go out and travel and whatever, you have to have a nutritional program that allows you to have a little more freedom than this, like, I'm just going to lock myself in a cave and only eat vegetables and meat for 30 days. So appreciate it, guys. I love you, and we'll talk to you next time.